Good day, everyone across North America. My name is Jason Metcalfe, filling in for John Garmendi, and we want to welcome you to our Tech Tuesday webinar. Today, we're covering Crystal LED. For those of you joining us the first time, thanks for joining. And for those of you who have attended a webinar in the past, we welcome you back. We develop these webinars for our customers, resellers, integrators, and consultants so that they can stay informed and up to date on our latest products and solutions. Before we get started, just a couple items of housekeeping. As in all of our webinars, there will be an opportunity for Q&A. So please submit your questions via the in-event meeting questions panel. And during the webinar, we will send some links to relevant information. So please be on the lookout for that. And here today with me are Chris Swartz, product manager for Crystal LED, and Steve Banaszek, who is the senior solutions architect for CLED. And as I mentioned, I'm the senior business manager for LED for North America. And today, Chris and Steve are going to talk to you about a little bit about CLED as a product and how to specify it into your project. So it should be a very informative discussion. So without further ado, I will hand it over to Chris. Thanks very much.
Hello, my name is Chris Swartz, and I am product manager for the Crystal LED BH and CH series. Today, I think we're just going to go through, first, we're going to kind of go through the products that we have in the LED space, and then kind of focus on the more along the lines of the BH/CH configuration and some of the install stuff that we're doing with the product right now. So let's look here. I'm going to go over the products first. We really have three different products in our LED line, BH and CH, which are on one platform, and Verona, which is our rental and staging, which is on another platform. They all come from the same line of products, but really the differences between them are the big difference between the BH and CH and the Verona is kind of the size of the cabinet, right? And then also the coatings that are on top of the LEDs. So BH, you can think of B for brightness, right? This is going to be our brightest LED model. And it has a matte finish on top of it. CH is kind of our high contrast model, and it has a more shiny, darker, much better contrast. Kind of the one where if you've got image specific needs, this is the one that you kind of want. Verona, interestingly, is kind of a mix of both of those coatings. We call it a deep black coating with it's a deep black non-glare type of coating. And that is more for the virtual production and rental and staging area. So you can see, I think I said this, but BH and CH is a 16 by 9 cabinet, and Verona is a square cabinet. More of the speeds and feeds here. BH and CH are in two pixel pitches. You've got 1.2 millimeter and 1.5. As well as different nit ratings on the BH is at 1700, the CH is at 1300. On the Verona side, we're doing basically we've got 1.6 millimeter and 2.3 millimeter at 1500 nits. Let me hold on a second here. Next slide. So basically, our portfolios, those three, I've kind of gone through some of these things, the max brightness and all that. But some of the benefits of these products are, BH and CH is just ease of installation, and with the CH specifically, picture quality, right? The kind of black levels you get in the CH is just amazing. You see it once and you just kind of know it, right? It's what images are supposed to look like, right? We can do things like um, bump up sources into a 22-bit space to do any kind of processing on them. We've got some great signal processing. We're using X1 for Crystal LED, which shares a lot of our processing with our Bravia line of televisions. Some of the other things that are really great with these cabinets. Um, this very low power consumption and very low heat, which makes the installation and maintenance very easy, and long-term use of these very, very easy as well. So let me, since I've gone over the cabinets a little bit, let me go over some of the other devices that we use when we are building a crystal LED wall. And the first one is our controller. So let me be specific about the controller situation with crystal LED. BH and CH uses our ZRCT 300 display controller. When it comes to Verona, those use kind of more industry standard controllers for that space, which would be Brompton and Megapixel. So we're going to talk more about this ZRCT controller for the BH and CH space. So one of the things you'll know or you're going to learn today is that our controller uses Cat7 cables. And it uses those cables to connect between the controller itself. And as you can see on this picture here, the back half of this controller, there are 12 ports on the left you can see. And those 12 ports will use Cat7, just standard Cat7 cables to go to the back of the cabinets, to what we call the home runs of the cabinets. That Cat7 requirement brings some limitation. If you decide to use only a ZRCT 300 and a wall, and then connect it via copper, there's a 10-meter distance limitation, which means that this controller needs to be very close to the wall, specifically depending on how big that wall is. As you get wider, your cabling needs to go a little wider. Um, to break out from that, we'll talk about it in the next slide, but we do have a fiber extension, right? So right now, there's a 10-meter distance limitation without fiber extension. One of the things that you should also know is that the ZRCT 300 controller uses ADCP Ethernet control protocol, and we have those protocols in a manual that we're more than happy to provide. Quickly, before I go to the next thing, our inputs are two HDMI and two display ports. So that gives you a lot of options. So we talked about fiber extension. This is a new product for us. It's our ZRA T1 and R1. They're fiber extenders. So what it is a transmitter box and a receiver box, and they basically have the same type of requirements. Yeah. So those requirements are written below. But if you want to extend that ZRCT 300 into a rack room that's down, in the other side of the building or whatever, you can extend this up to 984 feet or 300 meters away, right? Um, these boxes use OM3 duplex multi-mode fiber with LC connections, and, and it's a pair, right? So you've got two strands per box, right? And that's per transmitter receiver pair. It also takes some SFP plus and USB-C power adapters. These are not included in the product. You'll have to spec these yourself. We can give you ideas of what we've used before and what works, but it doesn't come in the box. So you need to make sure that you have at least a good idea of what you want. And I would say the specific on this is that PD power adapter. It has to be able to auto negotiate the power usage. Also, as I said before, the T1 and the R1 need to be basically purchased in pairs, right? So if you have, four transmitters, you're going to need four receivers. Let's go to the next slide here. I want to go ahead and show you what we have here. We have a an online configurator from the Sony website. And I'm going to actually go and show you how this works. But what it is it's a web page that will allow you to configure pretty much all of our products in the LED space, and even discontinued ones that we've had previously. And let's go ahead and take a look at this. So as you see, the link will be, we are giving you that link. So one of the easiest ways to find this is to just go to Google and type in CLED configurator. That'll get you right here, no problem. But it's pretty straightforward. As you can see right now, I've got up an 8x8 with our CH product. And if I pull this down, you can see that it has all of our SKUs for our products. And if you see VP, that's going to be Verona, virtual production. If you see BH or CH, that's our current crystal LED product for the corporate lobbies, stuff like that. And then we have B and C, which is our last version of the BH and CH. And then we also have down here ZRD2, which is kind of an older product from us for us, but it's still kind of the standard. We've got it out in the wild, and people really love it, and it's been a very very successful product. Each one of these are kind of different in the way they lay out, so you need to make sure that you are choosing the correct model. And right now we're going to just go with the CH1 too because it's basically laid out here. One thing I do want to let you know is that CH, if you're doing 1.5 and 1.2 millimeter, the cabinet size is the same, right? So you're going to see the cabinet size be the same, but based on how many pixels you need, that's going to be what's different, obviously, because you just can't fit as many pixels in that 1.5 as you can fit with that 1.2. So let's go down here. Some of the configuration is you can actually decide whether you want to fill a space or if you want to just go with your cabinets and your rows, right? So um, right now I've got it in cabinets. So if I go up and go to like 9 or 10 by 10, you can see that it's giving me more cabinets and more columns and rows to fill that out. I just kind of went with an 8 by 8 because that is for a 1.2, that is the amount of cabinets that you can have on one controller, right? But if you want to go over here and change it to meter or change it to video wall area, and it's already got the feed out here. But if I just wanted to do 100 feet wide, it's going to really go crazy, right? But it's going to give you, if you have a space and you're looking to find out how many cabinets you can fit in there, this is kind of a really cool way to do it. And you can also change that to meters here if I want to go to 100 meters, which is a very wide wall. Let's go back to columns and rows. I'm going to go back to 8 by 8. As you can see, it kind of gives you these cabinets. It shows you that, and it also has a person here, and you can actually turn the person off to give you an idea of what it's like on and off, or what you can see for scale. One of the other things you can do is that we're looking at panel grid right now, but if I go to cabling, it's going to show you how this is cabled, right? Which is very handy because the controller's kind of specific about how it's cabled. This is just a suggestion. They can be cabled in multiple ways, and if you're confused about the cabling for this, we're going to give some documents with every install that we give out that kind of lays out how it works, but we're always open. Just give us an email and we can walk you through the best way to cable this. As you're looking at it here, I'm showing signal cabling. So this would be our Cat7 cabling. As you can see, these devices right here are home runs. And then we would daisy chain from here over. Steve is going to talk more about this here in a little bit, but I just want to kind of go over it. One of the things, it's kind of an interesting thing here, is the way that our controller works is that one side of the picture layout is from ports on the controller 1 through 6, and one side is on controller ports 7 through 12. Let me also show you here, if you want to look at power or how to run power, you can pull this down and hit power cabling, and then you can choose what voltage you're going to use, because these cabinets will run basically from 100 to 240 volts. So you can do 100-volt cabling here, which is obviously there's less in the daisy chain that you can put together. So you need to run more home runs, but with the 200 you can run quite a few more. Let's do that at 100. I'll go back to your signal. And then one of the things you can do here as well is you can add if you want to do a fiber extension, you can add that in here. And as you see, everything you do over here on the left will get updated on the right. And the right is where we're giving you all these fine details and specifications for you to see what your requirements are, how big everything is. But as you can see right here, for an 8x8, you would need 4 pairs of ZRA T1s and ZRA R1s, right? And then let me scroll down and kind of show you what's given here in this configurator. We have the wall type flat. We have the number of units, the width and the height. We have the dimensions, right? And it gives it in feet and inches and meters. For the width, the height, the diagonal. This is a 220-inch diagonal with our 8x8. We have the actual pixel resolution here and the aspect ratio. We have the pixel pitch. We have the brightness, right? The 1300 nit brightness. We have the weight of all of these cabinets in pounds and kilograms, and we have the power consumption. This power consumption here is based off of a maximum, which is what you should spec the install for. But this is more average, is more about what you will see on regular use. We also have some heat dissipation information with how the heat dissipates from the front and from the back. One of the cool things with this, and I'm almost done with this, is that once you have got what you're looking for, you can basically just download it as a PDF, or you can print it out and send it to whoever you like. So let's go back to the other PowerPoint. And let's take a look here. Oh, this is my last slide, and I just wanted to kind of give you an idea of what we are looking at for certified partners for our mount. Because Sony does not provide the mount, we do actually sell through a universal mount from Peerless that you can buy when you purchase this if you want to. But if you need something specific, um, we have multiple partners here. We have Peerless, they're out of Chicago, Draper, who are in basically in Indianapolis, and then RP Visual and Chief, both. They all have great solutions. It's kind of who you're more used to using. I would say that in the custom world, you're kind of looking over here at this left side with Peerless and RP Visuals. If you need a curved display, or if you need a very large display, if you need stuff off of the shelf, between Peerless, Draper, and Chief, they're all very good products. And that's it for me. I'm going to say thank you for listening to me. Let's throw it over to Steve.
Hey, Chris, thanks. My name is Steve Banaszek, as Jason mentioned earlier. I'm the Senior Solutions Architect / Project Manager for CLED. So I'm the one that usually is on site, either training or supervising an install for our different CLED products. So let's jump to the PowerPoint here. I'm going to go through a basic installation overview of the CLED product, as well as cover some of the SOW, or the integrator responsibilities, just to help everybody have a smooth and efficient install. So basically, I wish this could be my only slide and this would be explain enough, but I'm going to have to go in a little more detail than just this. But it can be this simple as long as we can prepare ahead of time and get our ducks in a row. And so hopefully my section here can help you work through those details, so that everything is ready to go once everyone's on site and ready to start building. So Sony itself does not offer any installation services, but we do have references to other groups that can do that for you. The main thing is, if the integrator has not been trained, there's an installation supervision that is mandatory, then also the install and commissioning. That supervision basically covers training your techs on site of setup and operation of the C-lead wall. If you just, get another C-lead wall, then you don't have to use the installation supervision. We just go to the commissioning because your team will already be trained on that portion. So we do have, as I mentioned, we do have third-party installers that you can use if you just don't have the manpower or the time to do the install. You can see them listed there: Herman, T-Tech, Rogue, are just some of the Sony trained and authorized installers for the C-lead installation. One thing I'll go through here during the slides is talk about, how much simpler and quicker we can be with our installs compared to the competition. As you can see in this view here, in our cabinet, we've gone down and we only have 2 modules that we have to install. But if you take a closer look, you can see that there's 12 actual separate modules, 6 to each half. But what we do is we have those factory aligned and set up so that they're ready to install just as 2 pieces on site. Makes for a much quicker module install when you get to that portion of the build. Some wiring details. Everything is daisy chained between the cabinets, obviously. And that is all inside the cabinet. There's nothing that hangs out the back. All the service and install happens in the front side of the cabinet. There's no removing of cabinet to get to any cabling or wiring. Everything is run through the inside of the cabinet. Short jumper cables provided by Sony that go between the cabinets, that's both on power and on the LAN connection. As Chris mentioned before, that signal cable, the Cat7, or the home runs, as he mentioned, those are, with the bundle kits, those are provided by Sony. If it's a custom install, then the integrator would have to provide those. As Chris mentioned before too, Cat7s, those are 10 millimeter or 10 meter lengths. Also, you can be Cat7 or better. So if Cat7 is something you can't find readily, which we've heard before in the past, you can certainly use Cat8. That's got even better quality, bandwidth qualities than what Cat7 does. As you would assume, the signal, those home run cables are the first signal from the controller to that first cabinet. And then from there, the daisy chain would happen. And then there are daisy chain limits with those. For the 1.2, you've got a 6 cabinet limit on the signal daisy chain. And then the 1.5, that's a 9 cabinet limit for the signal side of it. As Chris was just talking about, we do have those cable flow suggestions and diagrams through the configurator, which helps save a lot of time in itself as well. As Chris mentioned earlier too, we've got those universal power supplies, so you can run anything from 100 to 240. Most of the time we see, it's obviously here in the US 110 and 208, or 120, I should say, and 208. Some information there to do your math as far as, how much power you would need. It's 120 watts per cabinet. So then depending on, your the voltage source, you have, 1 amp or a little over half an amp. So the max daisy chains on the power side come into 5 cabinets at 120 and 10 cabinets at 208. Just some basic information when, putting together your power layout and stuff for the install. 20 amp circuit that handles 16 cabinets. This is all configured with 20% overhead figured into that. The daisy chains between, which I say Sony does provide, but it's IEC 13 to 14 cables that daisy chain between cabinets for the power. A little bit on the SOW side, or the system scope of work, is obviously the integrator site survey, the frame design, the specification, install. These are all responsibilities of the integrator, but also myself or the SSE that might have been involved before the PO was drawn up are all here to help out with any details in any of these situations. The frame design, if you have specific questions, the wiring, and such like that. Sony is here to support. It's just laying the land here of who's responsible for what, from the SOW there. Some of my commissioning tasks when I'm on site, I'll go through and I'll check the DCS and CAS setup. And that DCS is the setup for the CLED, display control software. The CAS is the color alignment software. These are the two main softwares that we use to set up and calibrate and align the CLED wall. And I will check the configurations of both of those. More likely, I will have set those all up, but I also go through training the techs on how to set the wall up using the DCS and CAS, because there's a maintenance side of it with CAS that there's a couple of extra steps that are needed to be done in CAS to replace a module, or replace a memory card. And I go through all that in a training session during the install. Obviously, everything's up to date. One other thing that makes Sony a little bit more efficient in the install as well is the Japanese engineers have come up with a great camera system that hooks into the computer and works with the CAS software to read the wall to set up and operate. It makes the install run a lot smoother and quicker. Manual tweaking to make sure that you've got the modules lined up properly, but you don't have to dial it down to an exact science, because the camera work will do the whole wall. And that will work on any size wall, from a 4K, a high def, smaller than high def, up to I did a 534 cabinet wall with that software, and it made the alignment process so much better. So that's another nice efficient tool for a build that Sony has in its little bag of tricks. Additional, I'll do some backup, walk through the text to show how to do that backup. If there's any hardware issues and stuff on site, we're there to obviously help out. And then, present with the warranty, technical procedures, and also get a sign off on the commissioning to make sure that everyone is happy with that. The warranty is a parts only warranty and an optional 2-year extended warranty on that. And there was one thing that I missed on reading my slides that I wanted to suggest as well. During that install, there's one particular piece of information that's not anywhere in the manuals. The rear covers I'm going to back up a little bit here. The rear covers on the back of the cabinet for the home run feeds, this slide here. See these two covers? Those covers need to be removed before you put them in the wall, because you cannot remove them once they're installed on the frame, unless you've got rear access, which most of these installs do not. So that's a note to be taken. Be sure for your home run cabinets that you remove those covers. Give you access for your home run feeds.
Hey, Steve, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. Hey, one thing I wanted to kind of say before we kind of wrap this up is it's very important, and this, we didn't really specify this either, that you have a PC that is dedicated to this wall as a software solution for maintenance and service and support. We really kind of require it in the SOW that you have usually a laptop, a very small, doesn't have to be a very great performing laptop, but just something with Windows 10 or Windows 11 to be able to run that CAS software and that DCS software. And it really needs to be hooked up to the controller consistently and left there, because if someone has to go on site to do service for this, we need to have access to all the things that we've set up and all of our backups and all of our configurations on there. The other thing I wanted to say is, could you go back over the camera gapping again real quickly, because you dropped out when you were talking about that.
Oh, sure. I mean, we can. So I'm not sure what we missed, but the so with the gapping software, we use an A6400 camera, alpha camera. Imagine that, and hooks into the CAS software. And so once you've done a manual gapping of just roughing everything in of all the modules, um, Sony has created this software that then you go and align it to the wall. It gives you, pan, tilt, zoom positioning for the camera so that you can set it correctly. And then you run that program and it sends out a bunch of test signals, test patterns. The camera reads those gaps between the modules. And then once it's done collecting that data, does the math and will apply the proper gapping brightness to each one of those edges to blend everything together. Takes about 20 minutes. It's a very good tool, great tool, making the install much more efficient, quick. And to Chris's point as well with the laptop, maintenance laptop is really required. And also it's a great time-saving tool as well, because you send one tech on site and that tech doesn't have the right software level, or it doesn't, or they don't have the correct DCS software, or they don't have it at all. And so this just saves a lot of confusion of sending multiple techs. The laptop is always there. There's no time wasted trying to find the right software, the right DCS firmware, all these things. So it's a great tool, and it's really encouraged to have one on site. So then we talked about that, and we talked about the warranty, and thank you for your time.
Thanks, Steve. Thank you both, and Chris.
Sure.
We do have quite a few questions in the chat here, so let me go through this. So Sergio asks if the Sony processor auto maps the layout. Can you talk a little bit about that process and what it takes to do the image mapping in DCS?
Okay. You want to take that, Steve? I don't care.
Sure.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
So there is only the short answer is yes. For the 4K setups, if you're doing a basic 4K, yes, there's an auto map. You would click in the DCS software under cabinet install, and there's an auto tab. And you just click tab. You drag 8x8 if it's 1.2, or 10x10 if it's a 1.5. Click, and it auto populates the video start position, the cabinet allocation, and then also where all the cabinets live in the wall. Anything outside of the 4K is a custom, you've got to go in and click in the boxes individually. So.
Great. Thank you. Yeah, hopefully that answered the question. Gregory asks, which of the product lines is appropriate for creating mobile displays for virtual backdrops in a broadcast studio application?
You want to take that, Jason?
Our recommendation would be Verona, since it is kind of purpose-built for in-camera VFX or camera integration. Although for some studio applications, because it's not wall-mountable, we can put the BH series in those, since it is lower profile as a matte finish for studio applications, but there's some considerations. So basically Verona is the product that's made for that application. Thanks. Chris asks, is the heat dissipation front and back, do you need to add the heat dissipation from the front and back to get the net BTU output? Chris?
That's a good question. I would say yes, but this thing really runs very, very low in the heat, right? And typically we don't specify that you need to have any kind of specific air conditioning for this. If you put this on a wall I mean, let's just say in the worst for heat, the worst possible situation is you take a wall, you recess it, right? Um, as long as there is, between an inch and 2 inches around the display, and there's some kind of movement of air into those pieces, and then from the bottom up, so like a return up in the top of the recess. We don't specify any specific type of air conditioning that you have to, kind of shoot down into that cavity or shoot onto the front. So it doesn't really run as hot as you would see from some of our competitors. It's actually kind of surprisingly low in that heat. I hope that answers your question.
Perfect. Maybe for Chris as well, can you speak to how much the additional adjustments are needed after install, especially for gapping, both physical and electronic?
Yeah, I mean, typically how we like to do it is, well, how I like to do it, actually Steve does a lot of our installs, but I go out on some of them. But yeah, one thing Steve told you or showed you a picture, our modules are pre-gapped, right? So we have a square, right, module block, right? And so it's 6 modules in each. Those 6 are pre-gapped. So when you put the 2 module blocks into the cabinet, right, you, the more important part is all of those seams that are between the blocks. So you're looking at 4 edges, for each module, because the insides of them are already pre-gapped, right? And so there are magnets in the cabinet that you can unscrew to basically align the Z-axis, and then that magnet also allows the module block to float, so you can physically push it together. And one of the things I actually like to do is, bring up a white background while installing, and then you can see the gap, physically with your eyes, and push the module blocks together to where there's not a lot of dark seams. If you're too far, the gapping on can really, the electronic gapping can really adjust for a lot of this. But one of the things is, if you're too far away and you've got a much bigger gap, it's harder to brighten those seams up to make it look seamless. It's much easier to put these kind of closer together and dim those seams to make it look seamless. But the camera gapping really can change your whole view on this, because you would spend a lot of time, even though we're only looking at those 4 edges on those module blocks, there's a lot of time spent physically moving those around to look right. And if you had to do that physically by yourself, it would be a tough, a tough errand, because it's moving them physically together, moving them apart, but there's also the Z-axis and doing all that, and you still have to do all of that on a high level. But finessing it to perfection is not something you have to do with this, because you get it close, you throw the camera on it, and then you let it run. And when it's done, it looks seamless. I haven't seen anybody else be able to do that like this. It really makes a huge difference on the amount of time to install it.
Thanks, Chris.
To-
Oh, sorry, please.
sorry, just to add to that real quick. Like, let's just say a 4K wall, after you get it built, to do, I think part of the question was too, with the length of time. So 4K wall, 8x8, to do the gapping manually and the Z. With 2 people, it's usually about 2 hours ish, maybe 3, depending on how the build went. But for 2 people. So just, to give you a general time frame. And then once that's all roughed in, then you use the camera. So, but it's usually, 2 hours, maybe 3 for 2 people to do a 4K wall that afterward. Thanks.
Yeah, no, that's great. Could you or Chris, could you just reiterate the model of the Alpha camera? I think
It's the
Haki was
Alpha
asking
60.
for confirmation.
Yeah, it's the Alpha 6400 with the standard lens. It's the 16 to 50 lens. So you can buy it as a package on your favorite retailer or whatever. They come together. And then we also have, a tripod we like to use. Usually it's a Manfrotto tripod, but one of the things that's really kind of helpful is we have a 3-axis head that we use that has the adjustments for the pan, tilt, and roll, which really helps if you have those axis adjustments. But yeah, Alpha 6400, I think you can get them for 1,000 or less for the camera and the lens, right
Yeah.
around there.
And there is a document that you will have to get that has specific setup in the menu for the camera, so it'll talk to the software, which obviously we can provide that. So,
And I guess just to add, you don't necessarily need a camera for every install. Just the team that's doing the install will need that system, right? So yeah. Sorry, I wanted to take two real quick that are related. And I want to try to combine the answers. So Sergio's asking, what's the main difference between Sony and other, non-Sony micro LED panels, and David is asking about how do you maintain performance over a variety of luminance levels, and I think that these are related because part of the difference is the engineering that goes into the product, the physical product, and how we select elements and our kind of much higher standard for components. And the power supply is a great example of that. We have a much more robust, efficient power supply, better power design. So our heat output is less, power efficiency is greater. The power supply itself, lasts longer, has a lower failure rate. But the processing and the image science and color science that goes into the display and into the controller prior to the display is part of our differentiation as well. And I think that managing luminance over a variety of levels is something that we do very uniquely, right? We're able to make sure that the display is tracking a gamma or EOTF very accurately over many different steps of brightness, not just one calibration point. And beyond that, the controller is doing it has some intelligence where as the temperature may change in the display, it's correcting some settings, on a kind of a per module basis. And as the display ages, it's also looking at the full display and adjusting things like luminance appropriately. So I think that is the Sony difference. It is a better quality or more selective choice of physical products, but then the processing, the image science behind those products as well is part of the reason that we can get a superior result. So I think that hopefully that answered both of those. Maybe just a couple more. We actually have quite a few questions, so thank you all. John is asking, what is the average depth of the installed units? I'm guessing there's the context there of being compliant with some depth requirements. Maybe, I don't know if Steve wants to take that, maybe, or Chris, sorry.
we're TAA compliant. So within that 4, if it was the cabinet itself, I don't have the drawings right in front of me, but the cabinet itself, I think, is 3 point something inches thick, deep, however you want to look at it. But if the question, we're TAA compliant, I guess, if that's where that question was coming from.
ADA. I think
Yeah, I was going to
I
say
think you mean ADA.
Sorry.
TAA.
Sorry.
That's a whole different
Too
discussion.
many acronyms.
It really. Let me
Alphabet soup.
elaborate. Let me elaborate on that a little bit too. And Steve said this. It really depends on the mount that you use, right? Our display, if the display, our cabinet, if our cabinet is sitting exactly on the wall with no distance between the wall and the back of the cabinet, we're going to be ADA compliant. The reality of that is that the standard mounts from most of these off-the-shelf manufacturers add an inch or two to it, right? So once you do that, you're going to be out of ADA compliance. So what you need to do is get a specific mount from one of these companies that can get you within that 4 inches that you're looking for. We can get you there, but it's probably going to be, a specific mount that you're going to have to need to use.
perfect. And I think John recognized that was what he was getting after. So I think we're at time. We have more questions. We will reach out to everyone individually because we actually had quite a few we didn't get to. We will provide some information about how to get in touch with us as well. If you would like more information about Crystal LED or Sony in general. And I did want to point out we have a couple. We have our next roadshow that's coming up is on December 3rd. It's going to be in Dallas, and then we have a few more coming up after that. It's too small, so I can't read it, but I know San Diego is one, and after that, there's another location.
It's
Denver.
Dallas, Denver,
Okay.
San Diego. I'm pretty
There
sure.
we go.
Yeah.
And then next week next month on the 10th, our next Tech Tuesday webinar is going to be a RV on AV, a Rich on AV panel, an AV year in review, appropriate. So tune in for that. I'm sure it will be great. We want to thank you all for joining, spending the time with us. Of course, Chris and Steve, thank you so much for the great presentation. Hope that you guys found it informative. We will have this available online afterward for reference. And we hope to hear from you soon. So please let us know how we can help. Thank you, everyone.